Hello everyone, welcome back to the Cappuccino build. I'm Jeff, I'm Throttle Grotto, and I am also the 10mm socket of YouTube. Today, the core support's going back on the Suzuki Cappuccino. Stay tuned. A lot of things happened over the past week to allow me to have Friday off and have all the parts in hand. So thank you to Christian from Avance who brought a fender down for me from Marysville, which is like 2 hours away. And thanks to the local sandblasting company that, although didn't give me a discount, got the part out a day earlier than they said they would. So that was a big help. I was able to pick the core support up last night and I was able to pick up the whole core support last night and get a coat of etching primer on it, mostly because all the moisture in the air here in the Northwest, it's been raining almost constantly. I wanted to at least get something on the bare metal so that when I'm working with it, I'm like the oils from my hands and stuff aren't rusting the metal and sending me backwards. So that is all ready to be worked with. And I have a pair of fenders, and you can see, that like really puts it in perspective how much I've taken off the front of this car right now. But we have everything to put it back. I found another one of these bars in the parts car. This is goes across the two frame rails to coolant hose bolts here, something else I can't remember, bolts here, something else, bolts here. But I have a straight and unbent frame rail support bar. I don't know, I guess that's what it's called. I have a core support, I have a fender, I have a hood, I have a quart of paint. Not all of those will happen in this episode, but we have got a lot of work to do here. So that core support right there can go on this car. So I am going to open doors and start working and making a lot of noise, and let's see what we come up with. All right, so now we've got things trimmed back to where I anticipated, at least starting from. And yeah, it's not pretty, but hopefully it will be sometime. Not today, friends. So yeah, I'm going to try setting this core support up against here, knowing full well I still have a lot of trimming to do on this part. So I'm going to set the core support up against here, knowing full well I'm going to have to do quite a bit of trimming on this part here. It really helps if I just show it to you. This part here, I'm going to have to trim, most likely, I have to trim these out of the center so it kind of slips down over it, which is my goal, at least on the outside. The inside, I'm going to use the existing structure that's there. And then I'm going to use this upper piece, which is already here. So I don't undo any of that. Just kind of splice that in so I can weld across the top here. And yeah, so getting this guy out of here, and then drill some holes so that I can secure it back to the inner plate will be my part of my plan. The other part of my plan is to trim, since this isn't structural and integral to the success of the whole interface over here. I'm just going to trim this back a little bit so that it'll line up with the lip that I made here. And then I can have enough room to stitch that back together and not have to worry about getting around the corner or anything like that. So that's the plan for this frame rail. The other frame rail is just going to be pretty much cut and trim till that all lines up. And I already have measurements for a lot of this stuff. So I have a fender I can measure the holes from here as well. So I can measure from here to where the other fender bolt is supposed to line up, and then use the fender to hold everything in place while I make some marks. So we'll see how well this plan actually works. Right, so after a significant amount of time trimming, I've got this flange trimmed back. I'll have to kind of clamp that back together. Probably drill another hole and weld that. I've got the inner flange separated here where the subframe bolts to. Sorry, not a lot of room in here today. I've got this trimmed back so that I can weld this to the existing metal that's there, and then I can plug weld this back to the inner structure that's there, the mount that curves up. Yeah, so we'll try test fitting this. I 100% understand and predict that there will be a lot more trimming to do, especially with these apron sections, because these apron sections are far from trimmed properly to match up. Those are like this one here too. I cut this frame rail back, hopefully, to properly line up. And yes, this is Booger Weld Central. This was here. It was like that when I got here. Apparently this has been damaged at some point. So yes, buying a damaged core support is better than no core support. Okay, so good news for the initial test fit. This doesn't look like good news, but it is. Oh my God. Okay, so let's start on this side. Right here we have the reference piece for the front end on this side. So this is lining up just about where the other spot welds came out. So that's good. That's a good start. Down here, I have this reference line here. Can't really see it too well. So you can see here the reference line, and you can see here that I did not cut enough off, which is good. It means I cut not enough. I'd rather cut twice. So my reference line up here, which is this hole, this hole is pretty close. So I'm going to leave this little piece in here until I get this all trimmed and cut back. And then ideally all of this will trim back to match the new wheel well. On the other side, I have the top here. I have these little wing-a-dings here right at the edge of this, where this panel joins up. So that checks out. And again, here, I didn't cut away enough, which is okay. So I need to cut away some more of this stuff to make this whole piece come back in and join up. And it needs to drop down quite a ways. And yeah, I know it looks like that doesn't line up at all. And there's a huge gap, but I measured off this bracket. Maybe not the greatest place. Maybe they're not in the same place, but I think once I get all of that trimmed back some more and get that reference, that little curved reference line there to line up better, this will drop down and line up better, because you can tell the whole thing needs to drop down and sit in to line up with the core support. So it looks terrible right now, but don't worry. I think with some more trimming and more, this is the part of the project where it comes off and goes back on like literally 100 times. And then at one point, it finally just magically lines up, fits, and everybody's happy. This up here, this is all this is lining up pretty well, and we get into this stuff. It's just a matter of a trim and some hammering and some cutting to get this all to do what it's supposed to. Inner piece back inside, that should move this whole panel back quite a bit, because right now the shock tower measurement doesn't line up where it needs to, and that's because this piece isn't far enough back yet. So more trimming, more cutting. All right, it has been it's been a lot of work, and this is not my job. I'm not the greatest at this. So I've got a little gap to weld up over there in the frame rail, but you can see it's much better than it was. Still need to do some trimming on the sheet metal around there and kind of knock that all together and cut it up with the body saw. Over here, I don't know why. I don't understand what's going on, but the gap, there's a 3/8 inch gap. You can kind of see it back there on the top and on the bottom of the frame rail. I don't know why. Everything up top here lines up great. Yeah, I don't understand. There must be a difference in the stamping between the EA11 and the EA21. But the shock tower measures out right. The fender bolts on. The hood lines up. Everything lines up exactly like it's supposed to. I've been out here for about 8 hours now, and here's where we're at. Still a ridiculous amount of work to do on this. But I have everything here tacked on, and I say that loosely because it's tacked on. Still got a lot of grinding to do. I've still got to finish. So let's look at what's actually done. I had to close the door because it's just too cold out here, but the top part of this fender support is welded in all the way around. You might be able to see it down there. Yep, I got some tacks in down there where the factory had their welds in. So that part is on. The upper fender support here is on. Most of this side of the apron is welded on. I still have a lot of work to do down here in this chassis leg. The driver's side chassis leg is tacked together. You can see where I had to fill that gap in the can point and hold the light. So I had to fill that gap there. I just couldn't get it any closer and maintain the fender lining up. I did some really boogery, nasty stuff up there. So I got to grind all this stuff down and finish cutting the apron and tacking all that in. All right, day 2 on the Cappuccino. Still need to do some cleanup work down here and around the back there, and grind these down a little bit. Finish up that area at the bottom of the shock tower, and then I have to fill my gap around the frame rail on the bottom on both sides, and that small piece of gap right there, and then finish the apron on the driver's side. it has been a really long day here in the shop, but I've got a ton of work done. You can see here, got the apron mostly welded in here, all the way down, filled in the gap there with a piece of metal, and then lined up the pinch welds, got that stuff welded in, plated the inside of the frame rail there with some eighth inch plate, and I figured that will be 100 times stronger than anything that they used in this car. In case of an accident, I know that at least this spot here where I cut the frame and joined the frame rails back together, because it's a little ugly underneath that, so at least it will be strong. And hopefully I never need it, but I can at least be confident that that is going to be stronger than the metal that was there originally. And same thing on this side. I've got a few little spots, like that little spot in the apron there. I need to make a patch panel for this part, and then, yeah, plating the frame rail here. I still need to do the outside on both sides and the underneath, but yeah. So just grind down my crappy welds and plate everything, and then I won't have to worry about this car not being strong. Like, these are not structural items here, but the frame rails are definitely structural. I wanted to at least put it back as strong as the factory, and well, 1/8 inch plate is going to be a lot stronger than like 22 gauge or 24 gauge sheet metal. So the Cappuccino is coming back together slowly but surely. Have a few more days of work before I can shoot some epoxy on this and get sealer on it, and then I've got a can of paint to put on here just to make the engine base sort of match. I mean, I doubt it's going to come. It's going to be pretty obvious that I've painted in here. So I'm going to go stuff my face and have a nice relaxing evening and get back to this soon. So until next time, get out there and work on something.